Hi DIYers, this is Michael from Alarm Grid, and today I'm going to be showing you how to bypass a zone on your 2 gig edge security system. So first of all, what do I mean by bypassing a zone? So when you have a sensor that's enrolled with the system already and you want it to be temporarily inactive for a particular arming session, you can bypass the sensor so that way the system will ignore the sensor for that arming session. The sensor will still be enrolled with the system, but just for that one arming session or whenever until you unbypass the sensor, it will be ignored by the system and not able to trigger an alarm or an entry delay countdown. It's basically telling the system, hey, I want to leave this door open, or I want to leave this window open, or this motion sensor, it doesn't matter if there's activity this particular arming session. It's going to ignore that sensor. So it's a good alternative to actually having to go and delete the entire sensor and then reprogram it, which would be kind of inconvenient. So you have the option of bypassing a sensor. So we have a sensor that's enrolled with the system right here. It's just a simple door and window contact sensor. You know, we open up the door window, and you see that we can choose to bypass the sensors that are not ready, as in they're in a faulted state. They're not closed, so if they were not bypassed, then they would potentially trigger an alarm on the system. So we can go and bypass all. And then we have to enter in a code, which we usually use our master code for this, which we have ours at the default of 1111. And you see that we have bypassed our sensor right there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this to cancel the bypass, and I have to enter in a code again. We'll use the master code again, 1111. Now, that's a good way to bypass the sensor if the sensor is already faulted. Let's close our door window right there. So we have our system in our ready to arm state. Now, what if we wanted to bypass the sensor when it's not faulted, like it is right now? Well, there's an easy way to do so. What we can do, we can click on the settings icon in the bottom right corner there, and we can enter in either in our installer code, which is the default 1561, or we can use our master code again, which ours is at the default 1111. And then you see we have an option for bypass sensors right here. And this will show any sensor that you can bypass on the system. You can also choose this Show Bypass Sensor button down here to isolate the sensors that are already bypassed. If you want to see what's bypassed, maybe if you have a lot of zones on your system, that can be pretty useful. But right now we don't have any bypass sensors, so I'm just going to tap that. And I can choose to bypass the sensor right there. And you see we get into our ready to arm bypass state. So right now the sensor is bypassed. If I were to arm the system right now, then nothing would happen. So let's demonstrate that. Let's go ahead and we'll arm stay. And we'll wait for this countdown to expire. It's just going to take a minute or so, but we'll wait for that.
System arm stay.
Okay, so now our system is arm stay, but remember our sensor is bypassed. So when I fault it, nothing happens. It's ignored by the system entirely. So now let's try disarming the system, and then we'll try faulting the sensor while the sensor's We'll try faulting the sensor while it's not bypassed. So right now the sensor is not bypassed. If I go into the bypass menu here, remember that's the settings icon, and then 1111. If your master code's at the default, you probably changed your master code, hopefully. And we choose the bypass sensor. You see that it's not green. It's not toggled on. This sensor is not bypassed right now. So we know that our sensor is not bypassed. Let's try arming the system again, and then seeing what happens when we fault the sensor when it's not bypassed. You'll see that this time, when I do it, it's going to trigger an entry delay countdown. We'll have to disarm within the entry delay period, or else we'll get a nasty alarm on our system. So we don't want that. So let's wait out this exit delay countdown period. Although this is arm stay, so it's more of just a countdown period because we can remain inside the building. But let's see what happens when we fault it after the system is fully armed.
System arm stay.
Okay, we have our system armed. So let's try faulting our not bypassed entry exit zone. And you see we get our countdown. We have to disarm before this countdown expires, or else an alarm will occur. So let's enter in our master code.
System disarmed. Ready to arm.
And there, we have successfully disarmed our system. So that should show you a little bit of the difference between a bypass sensor and a non-bypass sensor. You can bypass a sensor to have it temporarily ignored by the system. It's a good alternative to deleting the sensor outright and then having to reprogram it entirely from scratch. Now, there is one last very important note that I really want to make sure I get in this. You cannot bypass life safety sensor zones. So that is like a smoke detector, a carbon monoxide sensor. Those are 24-hour zones, and you cannot bypass them. They will not appear in the bypass menu. So if you were to enroll one, you would go and you'd see your list of sensors in there. I'll show you again the settings icon. Then you can use, let's do our installer code, 1561. That's the default installer code. We go into the bypass sensors menu. It's only going to show sensors that can be bypassed, zones that can be bypassed. It's not going to show any life safety zones. Those cannot be bypassed. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you have a smoke detector, you have a carbon monoxide sensor, you're not going to be able to bypass the sensor, so don't go looking for it. Anyway, so that should give you a pretty good overview of bypassing sensors on the 2 gig edge security system. Great way for the system to temporarily ignore the sensor, so that way you don't have to delete it fully. If you have any questions about bypassing sensors on the 2 gig edge or about the 2 gig edge in general, if you have any questions about alarm monitoring services, send an email to support@alarmgrid.com. If you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up below, to like the video, and remember to subscribe to our channel for updates on future videos. We hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.